Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another ITWire TV interview. I'm here at SAP Connect 2025, and I'm here with David Vallejo. He is the VP Global Head of Digital Supply Chain at SAP. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Now, David, at the inaugural conference that we're at, SAP is announcing its supply chain orchestration technology to predict and prevent disruptions with your agentic AI Joule agents, which I think is a clever play on, Joule is a unit of energy, an integral part of this solution. So we're obviously going to learn a lot more about these energetic Joule agents during the conference and the opening keynote that is taking place almost directly after this interview. But can you please start by telling us about these new Joule agents, and that's Joule, not DUAL, these Joule agents, and how they are designed to work with people rather than replace them?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can think of every person and every role in the company. And in supply chain, you have quality engineers, you have a demand planner, you have a field service engineer. To give that person, based on their role, an individual assistant. So it's not replacing, it's assisting. And assisting in day-to-day decisions, in day-to-day insights that they need, and catering to their needs. And the assistant then has access to agents. And these agents, think of that this person needs to do something. This person, for example, needs to dispatch field service personnel based on an equipment that comes down. And so these agents are able to perform tasks that will be mining data to make a decision, that will be actually updating maybe my shipment plan if I'm in logistics. And so this Joule agent, think of that as, when you're traveling and you're using ChatGPT, it becomes your travel agent, tailored to your needs. And what we're doing is very impactful of grounding the data that this person needs to on a day-by-day basis, and grounding that assistant on that very tailored need. And what that allows us to do is also then tapping into agents that may not be exactly tailored to my needs. So for example, I'm a demand planner and I need to look at updating my forecast. I can now tap into the agent for revenue growth management and looking at trade promotions. So you see a new way of actually interacting with our software in not just being presented with a report, not just presented with rows of columns and of data, but being presented in just natural language to answer questions that I need on the spot.
I mean, all these agents are working together, able to pull information from different sources. And, technology is meant to give us superpowers. It's not meant to replace us. And also, for people who work with robots, the concept of a cobot has been around for a long time. So this is nothing new. It's just morphed from the physical into the digital.
You're 100% right? So this is not about a robot replacing the human. It is taking the robot out of the human.
Yeah.
And taking some of the mundane mechanical research tasks. If you have like even a medium-sized disruption in your supply chain where like a machine breaks down in the factory, you're typically tasked with making a decision. And sometimes that decision is like, who are the customers that are impacted? What are the alternative options that I have in the factory or maybe in a different factory?
Yeah.
And some of these require a lot of data gathering, a lot of mining the right information, perhaps even in different applications. And what we're doing is we're giving now the human an ability to be informed much quicker, making much more informed decision, and really empowering, like you said, Alex, empowering the human being to enjoy their job.
That's right.
Instead of just working and crunching through numbers and Excel spreadsheets. I've done interviews with supply chain practitioners and asked them, what are you doing every week? And they're like, well, in the morning I wake up and first of all, I have to read 100 emails and Excel spreadsheets and running jobs.
A lot of grunt work.
And that's not meaningful work.
No.
A human wants to be respectful for the ingenuity.
Yeah.
and they want to be informed, and they want to. So the assistant, first of all, is empowering the human to have a more impactful and meaningful job environment.
Technology is always designed to let us work on higher value things. And the amount of info, I mean, we talk about information overload. It's been like that for decades, right? Well, here we are at the crux. We've got so much information. We finally have technology that can proactively understand it, sort it, do something with it, take action on our behalves. And that is not something we've had before. So this is a very exciting time in history, and it's just the beginning.
That's exactly right. So I work with customers say, look, we have 4 hour calls with our contract manufacturer, and 3.5 hours are really debating the data and really debating what report is right, and only half an hour on actually value added decision making.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is, no, you want to have only your focus on value added activity. And I believe that some of the innovations that we're bringing forward and that we're announcing at this conference are solving for a long unsolved problem and helping really the human getting back to their value added activity.
Well, it's great to see technology having advanced so much that we're at this stage at long last, because we've seen it and read about it in sci-fi. But I love how science fiction becomes science fact every day.
That's exactly right.
Now, you've also got the new SAP Supply Chain Orchestration solution. And look, you've just explained some of the ways that it measurably improves supply chain management for companies. But what else does it do? Does it allow companies to do that they couldn't do so easily before without all this grunt work?
Yeah, I think a lot of that solution was born out of working with customers through their most pressing problems.
I mean, it's always great when a customer comes to you with a pain point, because that might not be one that you've had, but like a customer says, I need help with this, and then you can help them, and they're so happy.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also surfacing problems that they don't think they have.
Yeah.
So some of the major disruptions that have happened, and I asked the companies, how are you dealing with that from a system perspective? And they said, when we have a major disruption, we're going out of the system. I'm like, why is
Sorry, you
that?
do what? You go out of the system.
Out of the system because it doesn't have the data that I need.
And it's like, what's the point of having the system if you have to go out of it?
Exactly. So one of the sort of priority one problem that they have is, for example, you have new trade uncertainty. Tariffs are being announced. I'm like, well, how do I know if I'm impacted? Maybe it doesn't impact me directly, but maybe my suppliers, maybe my supplier's suppliers. So one of the most pressing problems is, how do we even know what my supply chain looks like?
Yeah.
What is the third tier supplier? I don't know. So what we're doing is basing the supply chain orchestration on a digital twin of your supply chain to inform you what your suppliers are, to create a probabilistic model even further upstream based on your product, your direct suppliers, who are likely going to be your second and third tier suppliers. And that will now be a much more informed way to understand, am I impacted? Am I, what are the course of actions? Putting the spotlight on really what the problem is.
And they say knowledge is power. Well, here's a great example of how that really is true.
That is 100% true, yeah.
So you're also launching a new advanced AI and unified scenario solution, which I think this is what you were just talking about, the digital twin. So what else do we need to know about the unified scenario solution?
Yeah, so look, supply chain has been, for the longest time, well defined in its sort of software categories. So you have logistics that has warehouse management, that has transportation management, you have supply chain planning, you have manufacturing execution. These categories existed for a very long time.
Decades.
But what about that horizontal layer where a potential change or disruption impacts all of these dimensions, multiple dimensions, or all of these dimensions? And there was lack of systemic support to actually bring stakeholders together, to have cross-system scenarios that I need to plan out. Do I need to find other suppliers? What is do I absorb costs? Do I change my manufacturing balancing across different factories? What does that mean for my inventory and customer service strategy? So you see that we had all the puzzle pieces, but what about this overarching layer where I can truly orchestrate?
True visibility.
True visibility as a starting point, but then doing an impact analysis, creating scenarios that may cut across even outside of supply chain, like I have a financial impact analysis, and then being able to execute these scenarios from the exact same environment. So that centralized experience, think of that like the conductor in an orchestra, is something that we put high emphasis on. And we're very proud to announce this new solution that we aptly call Supply Chain Orchestration.
Yeah. And just reviewing your new innovation guide, which I'll link to in the article that accompanies this video, there are 3 new Joule agents that you wanted to highlight. And I know that you were saying before that the agents can speak to other agents within the system that are able to deliver information that these particular ones may not have to hand, which is great. I mean, everything's working with everything else. But what were those 3 new Joule agents specifically for supply chain orchestration?
Yeah, so we're very happy that already at Sapphire we started to, release the first wave of agents, and this time we doubled down, and so we have like a production and an engineering agent that helps production engineers to understand the reasoning why we have problems in production, the reasoning why I have deteriorating quality, and a lot of that is very data heavy. Almost becomes like a research project where really the root causes are. Is it the machine that is poorly calibrated? Is it maybe the bill of material? Maybe it's a part that I'm getting from a supplier that has deteriorating quality. The second piece is going more on the product lifecycle management around change record management, understanding really what changed in my recipe, what changed in my bill of material, and understanding these vast amount of data to make sense of it and give very simple answers and say, bottom line, this is what has changed. And so for companies that have very complex products, very complex recipes, that becomes a very, very labor-intensive task. So we're putting an assistant on top of that to assist with that. And the third one, which I'm super excited about, is around onboarding suppliers. We have a business network, and sometimes the biggest inhibitor to get suppliers onboarded quickly is they have a reservation because it takes time, it takes effort.
You go with what you know.
Yeah, and you're filling out big surveys of information. So now we're adding a supplier onboarding agent to help onboard that supplier very, very quickly. So it's already pre-filled with all the information that we know, and we can make that like with a flip of a switch.
Great to hear. So you've also got the new SAP Logistics Management solution. So what does that enable?
So yeah, we had, like at SAP, we had logistics solution, extended warehouse management, transportation management, out for a very long time. And these are solving the most complex challenges. Think of very complex warehouses where you have automated robots going around, transportation optimization. At SAP, we know how to do complex. But what about if I just have a simple stockroom? What if I just need a very simple solution to replace perhaps just a spreadsheet that I have to track that? Or how about I have just a stockroom with spare parts attached to the factory? I don't implement a big warehouse management solution for that and attach it to a big transportation management to manage inbound or outbound freight. So what we decided to do is deliver a solution into that sort of blind spot of a market segment of very simple, oftentimes local warehouses that are on the fringes of the supply chain with a very nice public cloud SaaS solution that doesn't solve all the complexity of robotics and optimization, but offers a really out of the box, simple to implement within days, that I can ramp up my simple stockroom with a logistics solution, and is also attaching the carrier network. So in case I need to find additional carriers to manage the delivery and the shipment inbound and outbound of that, is right there. So it's one single solution that puts together warehouse management capabilities, transportation capabilities, as well as adding the logistics business network to it in one very simple solution. So catering to, if you will, mid-market companies, but also large companies that have not equipped their smaller local warehouses with that capability.
Very interesting. Now, you also have the SAP Business Network, and this has been supercharged with AI and more. So please tell us about that.
So yeah, the business network goes back to the acquisition that we had with Ariba in 2012. And very, very rapidly growing, adding suppliers. We're doing like a 6.1 trillion US dollars of commerce through the business network. So that's like 8 times the size of Amazon.com business. So massive. But what we realized is in order to get to the next wave of scalability, we need to really re-platform this business network and getting on a modern platform. And so we've moved the entire business network on the business technology platform to have things like extensibility, to be able to use machine learning and AI to automate some of the purchasing capabilities. And like I said, the onboarding agent is a great example. Now we can do actually things that previously probably were hard to do. So we have done our homework that rarely enterprise software companies do. They put more and more on the old platform. And then we said, no, we need to completely re-platform and invest in that. And we're happy that we've done that.
Sometimes that's the best way. So when will your customers be able to take advantage of these new capabilities? I noticed that when I looked at the material, some of it's available now, some of it's coming the end of the next year, some of it's coming by the first half of 2026. And separately, but also together, what has the response been from customers already beta testing these features?
Yeah. So some of these capabilities are already available. We're announcing some of the new capabilities, for example, in integrated business planning. Some of these agents are becoming available immediately.
And some of them you announced at Sapphire. So, I mean, some of this is already out there.
Some of this is already out there. But Alex, one thing is very important. We're announcing something that you would think, well, if you're announcing it today, but it's not coming a reality until beginning of next year, why are you doing that?
It takes time for people to get ready for this change.
Exactly. And we're also doing a lot more what we call forward development. We want the customers to engage with us. We want them to be part of the development process because we want to learn the problems we need to solve.
It's like the iOS beta, public beta.
That's exactly right. Putting things out there for public preview, right?
Yeah.
And inviting customers to give us feedback of being early beta testers. Work with us in a conference room, like sharing with them. Here's what we're building so far. What do you think? And it's a model that, if you will, we've been following. In the past we called it co-innovation, but it's a departure from, if I look at SAP 20 years ago, we've cooked up a solution in the basement in Waldorf and then brought it to the customers and are surprised that it doesn't really solve their problem.
Yeah.
Well, now we want to work with them together. And so that's why we're announcing it now, so that we're inviting customers to give us feedback, and we have, demonstrations of the software and showing them sort of the early preview, but inviting them to give us feedback.
Look, as I've often said in these sorts of interviews, your customer base is your best R&D division because they're the ones using it. They're the ones having the problems, trying to use it in ways it wasn't necessarily designed for. And, you get the best feedback from your customers. Feedback is a good thing.
I think so. But also, I think we're learning that it's, like Henry Ford said, if I had asked my customer, they wanted faster horses. And so sometimes we also have to
balance.
change the mind of the customer and say, think of the new ways you can interact with software. Think of new ways you can perhaps even organize your roles in the supply chain, right? So it's a very healthy dialogue of really getting to the problem. Oftentimes the customer wants to come to us and say, here's a solution I need. We're like, no, let's understand the problem it should solve.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out the proper solution to solve that problem, perhaps even better than the customers dreamed of.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before I ask you a couple of personal questions so we can learn a little bit about you, is there anything else that we need to know in the short time that we have that you'd like to alert us about? Because we're going to learn everything else at the conference, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
I think what comes to mind for me personally, I've been to a lot of SAP conferences, but this time we have the most jam-packed innovation agenda that we're sharing with our customers. And sometimes we've been at Sapphire, we announced one thing or maybe two things. We have like so many things. We have, 55 different supply chain breakout sessions where we're sharing forward a lot of the innovations that we have done. And they're real. So this is not just promises, they're becoming real. You can start interact with agents. We show this to customers and they're like, this will be a complete game changer. We're showing them a Joule agent where you can ask a question. Why is my customer service deteriorating in this region? And it's like ... There are 3 reasons why that is the case. The work center in this factory has a bottleneck. The forecast by this customer has been changed, so you need to catch up on your inventory. And customers are seeing that, they're pounding on the tables like, this will be a complete game changer. I'm asking these type of questions all the time to my staff, and a week later I get a spreadsheet with 15 tabs and all these explanations. Now I can ask Joule directly,
Yeah.
and I get a meaningful answer. And so I'm super, super excited about the innovation that we're showcasing, super excited about making that a reality to get together with our customers and really changing the operating model of supply chains for the next generation to come.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to hear about all of this in the keynote and over the next couple of days. A personal question, can you please share a memory of your first personal computer?
My first personal computer was a Commodore 16.
16.
And-
You're the second person to say that
And-
to me, because everyone knows the Commodore 64, but nobody knows the Commodore 16, or very few. And that was not the one to get at the time.
So yeah, my parents said you're gonna buy your own computer, and the Commodore 64, which I would have loved to have, was outside of my budget.
Yeah.
So I had a Commodore 16, and it had a more advanced basic programming language, but was very limited in its computing
It's
space.
16K, not 64.
But I took my first steps. I started as a software developer, and I worked with the Commodore 16 and was amazed by the possibilities, even how limited they are.
Yeah.
But if you compare a Commodore 16 and its capacity of 16 kilobytes of memory, comparing to HANA Cloud where we have hundreds of terabytes, it's amazing what we can do now, where really the technology gap has been lifted.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the tyranny of distance in Australia because we're so far away, but that's been removed by Zoom, and we don't have teleportation yet. But the tyranny of computing, like the lack of the digital divide, that at least at this level is long gone.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So my second last question is to ask if you could please share some of the best advice you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
So I think one of the best advices I got when I was young in my career, they said the practical experience is something that that rounds you out as an individual. So I really focused on wherever I visit a customer, tour their factory, look at their warehouses. It was actually, I started my career actually in a customer support, managing help desk and running a help desk, being a support engineer. And I asked the customer, hey, to better understand your environment and to serve you better, it would be great if I could visit you. And he was like, I would be more than happy.
Yeah.
And what I learned through this practical experience, actually working with the factory engineers, working with the supply chain planners that are sitting in their cube and they're like, how are you doing this? And they're like, well, we need to get the plan out by 7 p.m. tonight. It helped me build a compassionate, appreciating model of what our customers are actually going through in their lives. And that was a very practical advice that I got as a very young dude. Learn the practicality. Learn what every person that you're servicing is actually going through, walking in their shoes.
That's the antidote to that famous saying that says, business would be great if it wasn't for customers.
Exactly.
But without customers, you've got no business. So truly understanding them is definitely the key. So what is your final message to the viewers and the readers?
So the final message is AI can be daunting. It can create anxiety. It creates perhaps also anxiety for, am I ready? And what I'm telling our customers is we're on this journey together. As we are learning what problems we want to solve, as we are learning how the solution is going to be adopted, this is something that we want to not look at our customers as a client. We want to look at our customers as a partner. We want to solve the most pressing supply chain problems together. And that's why I love the fact that we're engaging customers very early in the beginning or during the development process, and really understanding what we want to do is impactful.
Well, David Vallejo, the Vice President and Global Head of Digital Supply Chain at SAP, thank you very much for your time, and here's to a great SAP Connect 2025.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.